We're doing the religion podcast again. We are delving deep into Christianity. One of the branches, Catholicism, and I am, of course, joined by Devin and our guest Benny.
Hello.
What up?
All right, and now, Devin, you had a list of things you wanted to ask us, right? Or you had like a schedule laid out for us?
Yeah, we got a schedule. We got this going. All right. So
Legit.
I hope everybody out there in the world right now is awake. My friends, we're
Yeah.
going to talk about something really cool. So we did last week, we did our overview of Christianity as a whole. We hit as much
Mhm.
as we could. It took us like 2 hours. It was awesome. I went back and listened to it. I loved it. It was great. It was dope. It was awesome. So the cool thing is now we're gonna kind of break it down and talk about other
Mhm.
and kind of like different belief systems within Christianity, and then eventually we'll do that for the other religions as well. And so we decided for the next one to hit the big one, the big one, the one that's been around forever, the big Kahuna. Okay, we're talking about, of course,
Mhm.
Catholicism. Okay, now the first thing that we need to take care of is we need to go in exactly what is Catholicism and why is it different from anything else, such as Protestantism or Southern Baptist or anything like that. What makes Catholicism different? You want to weigh in, Benny?
Yeah, so the term Catholic is very interesting because you'll see it a lot in the early
Mhm.
church writings. So Catholic is, believe it, either Latin or Greek, as most old things tend to be. But what it basically means, it means universal. So to be part of the Church Catholic, you're part of the universal church, as in like everybody who's a believer.
Mhm.
But that's why a lot of people specifically say Roman Catholic. The Roman
Mhm.
Catholic Church is what we're going to be discussing today. And it's very interesting. It's definitely like the largest branch of Christianity. It's really big in Italy, Ireland, Spain, a lot of Latin America, and here in the United States, it's
Mhm.
particularly big in the Northeast,
Mhm.
in the Midwest, and then out in the West, really everywhere. But the South, the
Yeah.
South is a big Protestant hub. But you have a lot of Irish and a lot of Italian descendants up in what I call Yankeeville, New England, or that neck of the woods, and you have a lot of Hispanic people that obviously descended from the Spanish who are very Catholic. So Midwest, so Texas and Arizona, that neck of the woods. That's where you have your big Catholic churches. Not to say that there aren't any Catholic churches here, because there are. You know, I live in Tennessee and I've been to a couple, and I've met a few Catholic people.
Mhm.
Um, those were the big ones are, and Roman Catholicism, the way I understand it, it's very much focused on, it's very liturgical, and very much focused on tradition. Um,
Yes,
Mhm.
and and,
absolutely.
what, and what's cool about
Absolutely.
them, it's like they've been doing this for like hundreds of years, and if not thousands of years. Um, so I think it's pretty neat the fact that you can say that you belong to something that's been going ongoing, the same liturgy for hundreds and hundreds of
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
So basically, some things that make Catholicism a little bit different is and the things that fascinate me honestly is the fact that well, first of all, there is an overarching authority.
Mhm.
Okay, so in most religions, and maybe I'm incorrect, please correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but in most religions, for the most part, although there are leaders and thought leaders in every single sector, whatever, and then like kind of regional
Mhm.
almost, you can't say like somebody tell me who the Southern Baptist Pope is.
Well, there's a Southern
Yeah.
Baptist Convention president, but
Yeah.
he's not the same as the Pope.
He doesn't
Okay,
have the
so
same
JD
authority.
Greear.
He's just, yeah,
so
he's like
he's
the
like
head
five
of it.
ranks down from the Pope, right?
Well,
Um, well,
Protestantism it's different. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought, and then we'll.
so I find it interesting that there's a central kind of figure and then an establishment built to prop up that figure. So that of course is the Vatican. If you've never been to Vatican City, you should go. It's really cool. And I've been personally. It's nice. And the Vatican is interesting because first of all, it's its own sovereign state, which I think a lot of people don't know. Vatican City is its own
Mhm.
sovereign
Yeah.
state. It's one of the benefits of being the church. And it's It's crazy. It's just so
Mm-hmm.
interesting and cool. It's just because you got this central figure, and then what they do is they come up with kind of what's okay, what's not okay, what policies need to change, and everything like that, and then they distribute it out, basically to the Catholics out there in the world. And so what it means is as a Catholic, if you're like a priest, you can basically do like a military style and go up the chain of command in
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism, if you have a problem or if there's something that needs to get figured out, and you can just keep going up and keep going up until you get to the very highest level,
Mm-hmm.
which is of course the Pope.
The Pope, and then you
Um,
have right below him is his bishops, I believe, because I know someone here, and they had their priest became a bishop of uh, St. John the Baptist Cathedral in Savannah, Georgia, and they got a call from the Pope and was like, "Is this like a joke?" And it's like, "No, no, no, you're actually getting a call from the Pope."
And so the Pope has to appoint you
Mm-hmm.
as a bishop. So you have the Pope, right, who's
Yeah.
the granddaddy of Roman Catholic
Mm-hmm.
theology, and then right under them you have the cardinals.
Cardinals. That's when I forgot
So
them.
cardinals actually are who vote for the Pope, and then after under the cardinals you have the bishops, and the Pope. In order for you to be a bishop or a cardinal, the Pope has to appoint you, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's broken down. So, for example, I live in Tennessee, and the Bishop of Knoxville is who has jurisdiction over the area where
Mm-hmm.
I don't live in Knoxville, but the Bishop of Knoxville has jurisdiction over my area. And so there's a
Mm-hmm.
bishop maybe of Nashville that covers the other half of the state. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but yeah, that there is a hierarchy, and so in Catholic and Roman Catholicism, you have the Pope, the bishops, the cardinals, and then all the way down to the priest. And you have that same system also in other branches of Christianity, like in Anglicanism. You have a hierarchy, and then we'll talk about this when we talk about Protestantism. But the granddaddy of Anglicanism is called the Bishop of Canterbury,
Mm-hmm.
really, and the Queen is it's over the church as well. And we'll talk about that. That gets a little fuzzy. But the Bishop of Canterbury is the quote unquote Pope of the Anglicans, and then the Orthodox Church have their version of it. But the no the because Roman Catholicism is so huge, no other branch or denomination has the same numbers or the same reach that Roman Catholicism does.
but even that shrinking.
Mm.
So that's something we'll talk about a little bit
Yeah,
later.
definitely.
Although it's only shrinking by a percentage point, so I don't think anybody's saying that Catholicism is going to be dying anytime soon.
Yeah, I
Not
don't think
within
so
our
either.
lifetime, at least I don't think.
Yeah, no, not a chance, not even a chance. We're talking percentage points, but when you're talking
Mm.
about such large groups of people, even a percentage point is still a significant
That's true.
amount of money. You know what
Mm-hmm.
money. Well, it is a significant amount of money. Okay, don't judge me. All right. I was trying to think of a way to say it to say it kind of
Mm-hmm.
in a different way. And I was like, well, if you have $1 million, then a percentage point of $1 million is a lot of money. Whereas if you have $1, it's a cent. And then I got confused. Okay.
That's too much
So
math for me. My brain.
I dropped out of math. Oh gosh.
Benny good at
I
music.
never went.
Benny
Okay.
no good at math.
Benny, no good math or talk. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding. Totally
or
kidding, man.
English. No, you're not wrong.
Okay, cool. So the what are the Catholic core beliefs? What are their core beliefs?
So their core beliefs, a lot of them are what we talked about in the last
Sure.
video.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the Holy Trinity
Yeah,
thing.
they believe in
Mm-hmm.
a Trinity, and most of what we talked about in their last video, the Roman Catholics believe in it. Really, what differentiates the more you study Christianity, you'll learn is that what differentiates most branches or denominations of Christianity is how they go about practicing those core beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's really like what separate the more nuance and idiosyncrasies. So for example, in the Roman Catholic system, if you want a priest cannot marry, right? They have to take a
Mm-hmm.
vow of celibacy.
Mm-hmm.
There are actually exceptions to that rule. Most people don't know that, but there are a couple of exceptions to that rule. But
Are
typically,
there?
I didn't. I
yes,
didn't know that.
I
yes,
didn't know that at all.
Yes. So the exception,
I'm co-hosting a podcast on this, and I did not know
I
that.
didn't know
and a
neither.
lot of most people don't know that, but there is the exception to that rule, to the celibacy vow, is that if you were a priest of, I believe, another denomination, let me think. If you were a priest of, like,
Mm,
if you were an Episcopal priest or an Anglican priest or maybe even a Lutheran priest, and you
mm.
decide to convert to Catholicism and you're already married, the church will actually let you stay married because
Oh,
the whole
interesting.
divorce statute. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, I know that's a big
that's a
issue.
that's a caveat, but 99 or
Mm-hmm.
95, 99% of your priests in the Catholic Church are unmarried, right? And they took a vow
Mm-hmm.
of celibacy, which, I mean, obviously they
Yeah.
could break, and not be a priest, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not married. Um, and then the Roman Catholic Church, they do not ordain female elders
Mm-hmm.
or female deacons,
Mm-hmm.
which is another uh, contrast you'll see in Protestantism, because
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a lot of Protestant denominations that will ordain female elders and deacons.
Mm-hmm.
There's some that won't ordain
There,
females at
yeah.
all.
There's
There's some
even.
that
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's some that will ordain females, there's some that
Mm-hmm.
won't. There's some that will ordain female deacons.
Mm-hmm.
There's some that won't. But the Roman Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
if you are a woman, you cannot serve in the office
Mm-hmm.
of eldership or deaconship.
Mm. I know you. Well, I also in some Protestants, some it's very new, but there are female pastors,
Yeah.
and I know that would not fly under
Mm.
the Roman Catholics.
Yep.
Um,
They are ridiculously behind on
mm,
that. I do not understand why this hasn't been addressed
Well,
yet.
in
But
well,
well,
because
in the Bible, and there's no
yeah.
women leadership, so they just go by this what's been laid out thousands of
Well,
years ago, from what I
let me
know.
clarify that.
There you go. Go
Let
ahead.
me
Thank
clarify that
you.
a little bit. So
Thank you.
the Bible, there are passages in that
Mm-hmm.
Paul wrote that basically say, in Corinthians and in Timothy, that basically he says that um, women, the only office that a woman cannot hold, right? So a woman can do anything in the church. This is coming from a very Protestant,
Mm-hmm.
point of thinking. Um, from a lot of Protestant point of view, the only office that a woman cannot hold at a church is the office of elder or a pastor or a bishop. So a woman can do anything pretty much except be a lead elder. She can even teach Sunday school. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my Sunday school teacher's a lady. She can do anything
Mm-hmm.
except that. Even being a deacon. But in the Roman Catholic system, a woman cannot be a deacon or a priest.
Mm.
the
Thank
glass
you. Thank you.
ceiling is very real in this situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
Uh,
know. I know in other religions though, that seems very very lax compared to a lot of other
yeah.
religions out there.
And then
what do you mean?
All I know, from what I know about other religions, is that there aren't even positions of, I don't want to say power, but higher up for any female at all.
or
Like,
leadership. Yeah.
mm, I know with.
Because, like,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, because I don't think the Dalai Lama cannot be a woman, right?
Mm, not that I know
From my
of.
understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Someone in the comments later on, whenever we watch this back,
Yeah. No,
Let
like,
us
if
know if the
yeah,
Dalai
let us
Lama
know.
can be a woman.
let
Yeah,
us, yeah, let
please,
us know
because
any other religions that, or
well,
if there are women only, or if there
yeah,
are
well,
any
same
kind of,
thing with
yeah.
Judaism. I don't think a woman can be a rabbi. Once
Mm,
again, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe, well, there are different branches of Judaism, so maybe there's
true.
some. Same thing with in Islam. Their
Oh, we don't.
version is,
Let's not talk. Let's not talk about Islam and females.
well,
Let's save
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
what I was trying to go for, but I didn't want to,
right. Well, I guess what I'm
because I
trying to
don't
say
know
is
much
that
about that one yet.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are very few religious systems in which a woman can be in
Hmm.
position of leadership,
Yeah.
and that's
Okay,
just for any religion. I'll
and
say that.
that's a vestige of just our history as humans
About to say
is
that's probably more of a history thing as well.
yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. It doesn't make it, in my opinion, right. It doesn't make it make sense because women are scientifically proven to be just absolutely 100% dope and handle
Mm.
and capable of handling stuff in a lot of
Mm.
cases much better than men can.
Right.
But
Mm.
the history seems to always get in the way when it comes to a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that's actually something that I would like to talk about eventually is
Women in religion.
how like how we can like kind of as religions, as world religions, not just one,
Mm.
kind of shirk off history and kind of move forward with the stuff that we understand now that maybe wasn't understood when
Yeah.
we were younger
Mm. Mm.
as a species.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I think that'll be interesting. But all
Mm.
right, so go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and you're 100% right. Like,
Correct. Yeah.
and there's a lot of Protestant denominations that are still having these conversations and these arguments today.
Cool,
And
they should
yeah,
be.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
They really need to be having they I think a lot of these organizations really need to take a serious look in the mirror at like the context of when their holy books were written and stuff like that, and maybe adjust fire. That's one thing I actually give Christianity credit for, because basically what happened with Jesus and with the crucifixion and all that good stuff, it actually was really good because in a lot of cases it was an ability for Christianity to kind of look at itself and observe itself a little bit and say, okay, maybe we should change some things around and make it. The
yeah,
cynical interpretation is
Mm.
basically everybody hates Christianity because it's like you can't go to heaven, you just die and go to hell or
yeah,
whatever. I'm not going for cynical though. I'm going for like, okay, that was a chance at self-reflection, and Jesus kind of fixed a lot of the
yeah.
problems that existed within the religion. So, uh,
And
way to go,
it's
Christians!
yeah, and it's very interesting because so the first people that proclaimed the gospel, that is Jesus being risen from the dead, were women. The first believers in Europe were women. It was a woman by the name of Lydia. And think about like and to take it back to Roman Catholicism, like Mother Teresa, who's done, you can't say that Mother Teresa is a jerk. Like, you can't say that.
Actually, that's highly, highly debatable.
Oh, really?
Mother Teresa's legacy is incredibly hotly debated.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, and this isn't me like trying to be like, hey, actually, Benny. No, like I'm actually totally serious.
Go ahead, go ahead.
It's well worth looking into. But what it is basically that Mother Teresa. See, so the Catholic Church is really great because it's one of the biggest like non-governmental like charity and
Yes.
medical distributors in the world, if
Just
not the
wise.
largest.
Yeah.
And so that's great. But Mother Teresa was famous for basically, besides her good deeds, which she did, of course, do good deeds. She was famous for having these houses that were full of people that were dying. And the idea, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, the idea was that they went there to die. So like they didn't get medicine, they didn't get treatment. They went there to pray and die. And so it's problematic because a lot of them probably could have survived if they would have had proper treatment. They trusted the church and Mother Teresa by extension, who is one of the most famous figureheads, in the history, in modern history. So as far as the church goes, so there was brutality, and then not only that, but getting off the subject of Mother Teresa, but going to the medical stuff, the Catholic Church has also been under fire because they do not, despite efforts out in Africa and other places that are ravaged with AIDS, because AIDS is a huge problem in Africa.
Yeah, it is.
Um, they do not distribute any kind of contraception to these people who really could need it because of the Catholic ban on contraception.
Contraception. Yeah.
So, which is just ridiculous in my mind. But obviously, our point here isn't to like sit here and judge. It's just to report. So, look into Mother Teresa stuff,
Yeah, for sure.
because you definitely there's like 100% debate over whether Mother Teresa was what she says she was or what other people said she was. And then basically as soon as Mother Teresa died, the first thing that happened was there was a mad scramble to make her a saint. but in order to become a saint, you have to have some kind of miracle. It has to be
Yep.
proven, a miracle. And I think they came up with something, and they did they sanctify Teresa?
Well, that's called canonizing her. I think it's called canonizing her, but I do
Mm.
not. I do know that it's a thing that they also tried to do it to Pope John Paul II when
Yeah.
he passed away. So I don't know off the top of my head if they actually went ahead and like confirmed it.
Let's see. Let's
Uh,
see if let's see
it
if Mother
wouldn't
Teresa's
surprise
been
me though.
canonized.
It would not surprise me if Mother Teresa and John Paul II, by that same coin, are actual saints. Which is, moving on from charity, something that is very very particular about Catholicism.
4
Is
September 2016, Mother Teresa was canonized.
Oh, so she is. So you can pray to her officially now.
Seems so.
Yeah. So that's another thing that Catholicism is very
Okay.
it's very
Oh, sorry.
unique.
I just got
Hold on a
a
second.
hot tip on the contraception. Um, the reason for the ban in quotes on birth control is because it's believed that we shouldn't interfere with God's plan. So
Yeah.
God's plan is obviously, you know, when you
So
have
here's the
child.
problem with that, and here's how I fight that.
Hmm.
So God's plan is AIDS. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's
Mm,
the I.
that's
This is
a blood
Well,
disease. I mean, I don't know.
I think the response to that would be that if you know you are infected with that disease that can be sexually transmitted, then you probably shouldn't be going around having sex.
well. How do you? We're talking about people who don't really
Mm,
have the most uh the most access to medical facilities.
Right. No, I understand
yeah.
100%. What I'm saying is,
But
and
also, I
yes,
also know that I have been informed by some people who are very smart. Told me that the AIDS virus is actually smaller than, I don't know, because condoms, I don't know, they're kind of porous, or everything has a molecular layer, and apparently the AIDS virus is smaller than that and can go through a condom.
I have heard that before. I just
Yeah,
don't know how true that is.
Okay, look.
true.
I'm gonna guys. I don't know
Yeah.
if this is a subject we need to be going too deep into, but I will say this:
Mm,
that the reason AIDS gets transmitted. I can't
mm,
believe I have to explain this. Okay, the reason AIDS gets
mm,
transmitted is because when somebody engages in sexual when they engage in sexual contact and they don't use a condom,
mm.
what happens is the friction causes micro tears in the
Yeah,
skin,
I know it's a blood disease.
and it's a blood disease. Okay, but here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. All right, if you wear a condom, what it does is it prevents the micro tears in the skin,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
therefore no blood. So the only thing that's going to be in a condom that could go through that stuff is semen. Sorry, it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yeah.
and that is not how AIDS is transmitted. So condoms, while not 100
Mm-hmm.
million gazillion percent effective, they are a very very highly effective thing, and you can cut it down
Mm-hmm.
by orders of magnitude if
It is
somebody
true.
uses
That's
condoms.
true. I mean, also depends on what part of the world. Because if there's a lot of, if you don't wear shoes, or if you don't have a lot of clothing because it's so hot outside, and you get like a nick or a cut, and then you go handshake your best friend who also, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm making up excuses. Also,
Okay.
I have
Well,
confirmation that Mother Teresa is a saint. She is a saint.
yes, Mother
Yeah.
Teresa was made a saint, and also
Yes,
I
she was
see here on
canonized.
the Independent is the fastest process of sainthood in church history.
I didn't know that.
So
Really?
that's what it says. I'm on the Independent right now, and
Mother Teresa became like a
yes,
saint the quickest?
yes, the fastest because I guess they need two miracles, and so they got
Hmm.
that going and they got it figured out. And I'm actually the reason I'm on the site was because I was checking out. I wanted to see if I can get any more information on kind of Mother Teresa stuff, so I wasn't giving out bad information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a conversation for another time though, because
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
it goes very in depth, but basically it's just that she was
Yeah.
there's the
Well,
facilities and stuff. So
well,
Mm.
this is a perfect segue. I mean, I know we went on a huge,
Yeah, we
but
went on other
yeah,
stuff that wasn't even related to this really,
which
but
which tends to happen anyway. But this is a perfect segue into something that is very unique about Roman Catholicism, which is their concept of saints.
mm.
So,
yes,
and some
Yeah, that is not
and
in
they
Protestantism.
at all, and it is a I like to call it kind of like a spectrum. because there are some people who go really, really, really over the top with praying to saints, and there are some people
Mm.
who just, I'll pray to Saint, Cecilia, for example, and there are, it would appear that certain saints are the patron saints of certain people. Like, for example, the only know off the top of my head is Saint Cecilia, because Saint Cecilia is the patron saint of the arts, and I just so happen to be a musician. So if I was Catholic, I'd probably want to pray to Saint Cecilia. But that concept of praying to saints is unique to
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism.
Yeah.
No other branch of Christianity that I can
Mm-hmm.
think of that might, once again, correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, has
Well,
that.
from what I have been told from this source that I know that is Catholic, they told me since they have not ascended um, regular humanism, but they have performed these great deeds. Correct? That's how you get into sainthood. Is that
Right.
they've done the time, they have done the incredible, and that they are with their messengers to God for us. Like in Protestantism, you just pray to Jesus, and Jesus is the great interceder, and He is the one who presents it to God. But in Catholicism, from what I have been told, and I'm also going to receive a text here soon. I can feel it. Yes, saints are people who lived like Jesus. So that's why I just got texted. So whenever you pray to the saint, they then send that prayer off to God, like a messenger.
Okay. All right. I just one last thing on the Mother Teresa thing, because I just saw this, and no, I'm like
Okay.
totally
No,
serious. I
it's fine.
just saw this, and I'm actually really bothered by it. Okay. So
Mm.
here we go. There is something beautiful in seeing the poor accept their lot, to suffer it like Christ's passion. The world gains from their suffering. Mother Teresa, fastest canonized saint in history. Gross.
Mm.
Okay, so I'm gonna get off that because that's disturbing. All right, cool. So
I have received some more.
next thing, actually,
Oh.
I kind of wanted to go into, and I think would be great to go into, is Nick.
Yes.
Nick went and attended a Catholic ceremony, man.
Yes. I've been to other Protestant services before. I'm gonna try and go to all the kind that we can for each religion that we've gone to, but it was very different than a lot of the Protestant ones that I've been to. I have been to 3 different branches of Protestantism, and then this one Catholic church that I went to. Service that I went to, mass as it were. It's very more I want to say they treat it more sacred than a lot of Protestant churches, unless you're, Methodist or Lutheran, or
No, and even
Anglicanism.
then, and even then,
Compared to, absolutely. Mass at Catholic Church is a set aside time, where as in Protestantism, it's almost fun. I don't know how to explain it like that. When you go to a Protestant church, you open up a lot of the times with praise and worship, then you go on to the message, and then go on to your closing prayer. So then you take home the message with you. And sometimes there are special occasions, like you do communion every once in a while, or you have, of course, your Christmas and your Easter services, and the pastor goes and does their message as they feel it. But in the Catholic Church, what I have noticed and what I have been told by these contacts that I have in the Catholic Church, it's very regimented. You walk into the church, and they have a tray of a bowl of holy water, and you do the sign of the cross from your I don't know what it's exactly called. You do the thing that all Catholics do: the forehead, stomach, heart, liver.
that's
I don't know.
called
Yes,
crossing yourself, I believe. Is what
cross.
it's called.
Okay, I'll probably receive a text message here soon about that. But but you do that, then you go in to the sanctuary, or if that's what it's called. And then before sitting down in the pew, you again cross, and then you kneel. Then you can sit down, and then they go through. It's very ritualistic. I don't want to say ritualistic, but there are rituals that they certainly
Liturgic is probably
do.
a better word.
What was that?
Lethargic is probably a better word.
Sure, absolutely, because it's something they do every single time. They have in the back of the pew, you have the pew missal, which is a planned out year long reading of the Bible. You go through the a lot of the Bible in. Yes, I just got a text. Head, heart, and shoulder. That's
Yeah.
the cross, sign of the cross. You do that, and then what was I saying? They do
So
okay,
there's
hold
the
on.
planned reading of the Bible.
Yes, plan reading the Bible, and you have these numbers next to the altar area. It's I don't know how to explain it. Well, let me go back. When you first walk in, it's very different than a Protestant church. You know, everyone's dressed up super nice. It's stained glass everywhere, more so than regular Protestant churches that I've seen anyway. And they have the stages of the cross, 12 stages of the cross lined against the wall. There is, of course, Jesus on the cross above
The Passion. Yeah.
above the altar. And then you have the area that houses the Eucharist, which is like this golden cage. I don't want to say. Then you have all the altar boys, and I don't know who the other guy was. He, probably a deacon, probably a elder there. And you, of course, is very respectful. And it went through. They would start. I don't know how to explain it. They would like talk. It was reading through all these this Gregorian. They would chantings that they have memorized. And starts off with that, your normal, and then it goes to a reading of the gospel. There we go. That's back on track now. Reading of the gospel. Then he does his message, and then they do. Yeah. Oh my gosh. 2 readings. Thank you. There are 2 readings. Gospel and then homily. Thank you, Sarah, for texting me these things. You have gospel and then homily. I should know this. I was just there. Gospel is, of course, one of the 4 gospels. And then homily. That's more like your. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to recall. It was all new to me. I've only been to one service.
Yeah.
And
the big difference in
there we go.
between Protestantism and a
Mm.
Catholic Mass, a Protestant and Catholic Mass, is that in Protestantism, typically, the crux, like the main
Mm-hmm.
thing, so to speak, is the sermon, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
main that you go, and everything leading. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Everything that you do, it's supposed to kind of supplement the sermon, whereas
Mm-hmm.
in Mass, the sermon it tends to be shorter, and it's part of a greater
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah.
process. So to
Mm-hmm.
them, it's whereas for Protestants, the sermon is the main thing.
Yeah.
For Catholics, going through the rituals and the liturgy
Yeah.
is the main thing. Like the
Thank
whole
you. Yeah,
process is the main
absolutely.
thing.
And
So-
another. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna, if you're still going on with what happened there, if that's still kind of your subject, then I'll get to it in just a second.
Yeah,
'cause
I was just
don't
gonna
wanna
say like
interrupt
the
your flow.
one big difference between that I could really say for sure. Oh, that was you do in the Catholic Church you do communion every single Mass, and at Protestantism you do it every once in a while on certain times. That's like
So-
one of the big things that I've noticed.
So Nick, what did
Yes.
they talk about while you were there? Like, what was the services? I guess Bible reading or whatever. What was kind of the word that was given to you while you were there?
The word was a verse, obviously about being salt of the earth. That's a big one. That's a big message that we take that they do in Protestantism as well. But it was saying that we use it as a flavoring. It was a preservative. We need to be good people as good stewards of the land. And I mean that I got lost in all the rituals. So of course it was salt of the earth. That's a big message that I've heard 1,000 times. It's being a light on this top of a hill, and of course, they do like a lot of Protestant preachers do, where they compare it to real life. He was saying there was some military base around where he went to seminary, and there's a big statue of Mary out there, and it was lit up, and then they couldn't afford to keep it lit up, so then the government paid for it to keep it light up because that's where the pilots would see the military base. So they'd pay for that, and he's like, there was their light on the hill. So it was a lot of that. There was also, I don't even know. I don't even know how to explain it. I should have written down more.
Overall, what would you say your impression was
It's
of your time spent there?
absolutely okay. Thank you. That's more something I can answer. It's very, I can't remember all the details, every little bit of it. But I can tell you it's much more liturgic, as Benny said, because when you go to a Protestant church, depending on which kind you go to, like if you go to Church of God, Charismatic Pentecostal, they're jumping up and down for praise and worship. And if you go to a Baptist church, Southern Baptist, particularly in the like North Georgia area, there's a lot of Southern gospel, and that's a lot of hooping and hollering. So church is a lot more like up and bouncy when it comes to Protestantism, but for Catholics, it's very step by step. It's literally an hour long. It doesn't go over or under an hour. It's specifically timed out exactly then. So it's very step by step, and you know how the mass is going to go every single time. Whereas with Protestantism, you're going to, something may come out of left field.
Well, yeah, that's something that I was going to say is that in Protestantism, you have more variety as far as polity and services and practice. Because, like, Baptist church down the street can look completely different than Baptist church across the city, or, Methodist or Presbyterian. So, and in Protestantism, you have like this smorgasbord of practices and even theology, whereas in Roman Catholic theology, you don't. And something Nick mentioned, it's the missal,
Mm-hmm.
and that lays out pretty much like everything for a whole
Yeah.
year. And you can go, and and their big thing is unity.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to a church, for example, here in Tennessee, right? I'll go to a church, Catholic church, this Sunday, but then next week I'll find myself in Colorado, and they will be talking about the exact same things at the church in Colorado that the church in Tennessee,
Mm.
and that's around the world.
Yeah.
So
So you mentioned you're saying that it's put together by a central authority. What the plan is as far as what they're going to talk about and what the sermons are going to deal with.
yes, now
Mm-hmm.
each,
From what I know.
obviously, as far as the sermon goes, each priest, you can't,
Yeah.
they don't make you say the
Mm-hmm.
sermon word by word.
Yeah, of course.
From after you
But they
read the
give you like,
homily, I believe.
yeah, but you have to preach out of the same passage of scripture.
I did not
Like
know
you can
that.
get a different
Yeah.
message from
Hmm.
from the reading of a homily versus another pastor or priest. Sorry, not pastor.
Yeah, and also it gets to the point where cer- uh, the missal will even tell you like, this is the color that the priest is gonna wear on this Sunday.
Mm. Yeah, when I was there, he was wearing green. He had a green
And I
robe.
guarantee you that every Catholic priest was wearing green,
Green that
probably
day.
in the whole wide world. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's pretty cool. Not gonna lie, I actually think
Yeah.
that's really neat.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Um,
I say I should have written things down, but you really can't when you go to a
Yeah.
Catholic church. Especially when it comes time for, like we were saying, communion, which is hold on,
Transubstantiation.
transubstantiation. Literally, you if you're not Catholic, you have to stay kneeled the whole time. Like that's another thing. The pews at Catholic church have these kneeling spots, whereas other Protestant churches don't.
Typically don't. Yeah.
Hmm. So if you're
And so the,
when you're doing the Eucharist, which is the communion, you have to stay kneeled the whole time if you're not Catholic.
gonna receive it. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's something that actually, it's a huge difference between different So there's different views on the Eucharist, and so of course
Mm,
the Eucharist comes from the Last Supper that Jesus instituted. That Jesus said, "This is my body that was broken for
mm-hmm,
you. This is my blood that was spilled for you, and every do this in remembrance of me." So, and the big debate is whether I'm sorry,
mm-hmm.
whether the elements. Oh my gosh, I'm coming down with something. Whether the elements, that is the bread and the cup, it's that the literal body of Christ,
Mm.
is that symbolic, it's God in those elements, or what's going on? And so,
Well, I mean, it's not Shinto. I mean, from what I've learned, God is not
right,
actually physically in, you know,
right.
the
Well,
bread or the. Is that what Catholics believe? From what you
no,
know? Okay,
no,
thank
no, no.
good. That was scary for a
So
second. I was scared. I was like,
trans,
this is-
well, once again, transubstantiation states that that little wafer,
mm-hmm,
the second the priest blesses it,
mm-hmm,
that becomes the literal
yeah,
body of Christ, like the
mm-hmm,
actual body of Christ, and that cup that you drink of, that is literally the blood
mm-hmm.
of Jesus. That's what
I,
I
transubstantiation
know
is.
that.
I might be
Oh,
crazy,
go
but
ahead.
that seems awfully unhygienic.
Um, I was
Pick it up
just
with the
told
Pope.
that he is right about it's literally the body and literally the blood of Christ.
Whereas, I believe so. Most Protestant denominations will have the symbolic view,
Symbolic.
which
Mm-hmm.
you can thank Zwingli for that. So the symbolic view states that um, you consume the elements and they are a symbol of Christ's body and of Christ's
Mm-hmm.
blood. But
Mm-hmm.
then you also have the Lutheran view, um, which, from a personal point of view, I kind of align myself more. The Lutheran view states that
Mm-hmm.
because God is omnipresent,
True.
God
Mm-hmm.
is in those elements.
Mm-hmm.
Those elements are not the literal body of Christ, like in the Roman Catholic tradition,
Mm-hmm.
but that He is in those elements because He is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Yeah. What I was told
and
during that is when that the the case that holds the elements when it is open, it is literally Jesus or God in the room with you. It is literally you are in the
yeah,
presence of God.
the physical
Yeah,
presence.
exactly. I just got a text that says we kneel because he is present. So,
Yeah, which is
mm,
something else, something that distinguishes the Eucharist. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but
mm,
do they actually drink actual wine when they partake of the Eucharist? Do you know?
yes.
Yeah. So in a lot of
Mm,
Protestant traditions, they do. So
grape juice.
the yeah, a lot of them do grape
Yeah.
juice. A lot of them do actual wine. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
them have like both.
Mm,
They'll have like a cup of. A lot of them do common cup, which I think is what the Roman Catholics and Lutherans do.
yes.
So everybody drinks out of the same cup.
I
Some
mean,
people do
depending
wafers.
on which part of the
Yeah,
church you're in, it's not like one big massive
yeah,
cup. There's like
yeah.
6, I believe there were at the one that I went to.
Yeah.
You had the
Some people do
helpers.
wafers, some people do crackers. I've done the church I used to go to does Hawaiian bread, and man, that was the best communion ever, dude. I'm so
Oh,
serious, Hawaiian
All right,
bread,
how do
dude.
I join up with this church? I'm just trying to get
It
some
it
Hawaiian
it,
bread.
it just depends on the church. And I've even heard some people that say people that hold the symbolic view.
mm,
Um, I've heard stories of Christian prisoners and martyrs who were in prison for their faith in
mm,
other countries where it's very hostile, and they would take communion with like bread and water, with whatever they had.
mm,
Whereas in the Catholic system, I don't think you would be allowed to do that because you know what I'm saying.
mm.
So
Because
that's
it's
a big
not, yeah, it's not been
right,
blessed either. If you're in like
right,
a prisoner of war or something, or you're out
and
in
something,
prison.
yeah, and something that you've mentioned, the Roman Catholicism, you have closed communion,
Mm,
which means
yeah,
you have to be a
we
Catholic to
we talked about that
partake.
before the podcast.
Yeah, so you have to be a Catholic to partake in the
Hmm.
Eucharist,
Even if you
whereas
are a
a believer.
Christian
Hmm.
but not Catholic.
Yeah, you have to specifically make it. Whereas in most Protestant churches, they have open communion,
Hmm.
which means that anybody can take the Eucharist
I mean, as long as you're a Christian. I mean, from
as
what
long as
I've
you're
been
a
told,
believer.
you
Hmm.
can lie and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm Christian," but like, I mean,
God knows.
they're yeah.
Well, and the Bible talks
Hmm.
about Christians who took the Eucharist
Hmm.
and they weren't supposed to. So
There,
the
yeah, 7 sacraments. First Holy Communion, that's one of them, and then there are
That's one of 'em.
classes for it. So you got to go to a class.
Yeah, no, it's a big thing. And so the
Mm-hmm.
moral of this story is that if you're not a Christian, uh, and you go up to take the Eucharist, that's actually kind of disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so don't do that. It's totally
Yeah,
cool.
no,
Like nobody's gonna
absolutely.
judge you for not taking the Eucharist. Does
Yeah,
that
no,
make sense? Like
there
no,
were other people.
yeah,
I was told that you're supposed to kneel the whole time though, since it is
yeah,
very holy.
yeah,
And so there were some people just like sitting on the pew, but like I was told you sit there, you sit there on your knees.
yeah. So something because I went to a requiem mass one time. This
Mm.
young man passed away, and he was Roman Catholic, but most of his friends and loved ones were Protestant. So it was really interesting to see a Roman Catholic
Mm-hmm.
church filled to the brim with Protestants. And true
Mm-hmm.
story. And
Mm-hmm.
when they called for the
Interesting.
Eucharist,
Interesting.
maybe like 4 or 5 people went up
Oh my gosh.
out of like
Wow.
the 60 people that were there. Only like because everybody was Protestant,
My
and
goodness.
so because they knew that, they printed on the bulletin. It specifically says like if you are not Roman Catholic, like we would ask you that you please abstain from partaking the Eucharist. Which I mean, it's fine. You know, what I'm saying your church or whatever you want. So it was very interesting to see that a Catholic church full of Protestants.
All right. So, my friends, we're drawing towards what would be the around the hour, which I believe, if
We're at
Nick correct me.
46.
Yeah. So we're
Mm-hmm.
drawing close, and so what I want to get into now, I want to get into the fun stuff. All right, we got a little bit of history out of the way. No, Catholicism, everybody, is very. It's a very interesting, very wide ranging subject, and we could do 5 episodes, 6 episodes, 10 episodes
Yeah, we
just on
could.
the
Yeah.
history, alone. Like it's been around for so long. But we are going to, for now, and maybe we'll revisit it again in the future. But for right now, I actually kind of want to talk a little bit about Catholicism's its legacy, and so where it's been and where it's going. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how hardcore I want to touch on. I want to touch on the controversies that the Catholics have found themselves embroiled in. But even today, the religion as a whole, the belief system, it finds itself embroiled in a lot of different stuff. Um, we have everything going back in history with a lot of human rights stuff. Now,
Mm.
to be fair, to the Catholics, human rights are a relatively new concept. But there was a I kind of want to go more into the modern day. I don't know if I really want to hit
Mm.
too hard on stuff that happened hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Are you
But
do you want to talk about like the stuff that Pope Francis just changed or like that he laid to rest or whatever?
yeah, sure, why not? Pope Francis himself has been
Mm-hmm.
interesting,
True.
and just kind of like kind of changing the paradigm a little bit as far as what we can expect from a pope. And I like that. You know what I mean? I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's about time somebody did it. But so what did Pope, what was changed?
I know he just said that animals go to heaven, like your dogs.
Did he really?
Yes. And I gotta pull this up to make
Well,
sure.
Disney told us that 15 years ago.
True, all dogs go to heaven. But there is something
All
I do
dogs
want
go to
to.
heaven.
I do want to check just to make sure. I'm gonna type it in because
He's
it's a
also
It's about
yeah.
homosexuality.
So he's been
He
not. I
changed
don't know if
something on that, didn't he?
well, he's been ruffling. I don't know if ruffling feathers is the right term, but he's been deviating. So the last pope, Ratzinger,
He says it's
Benedict.
not a sin. Apparently, he says
Yeah.
homosexuality tendencies are not a sin.
So
Right.
wait, hold up. Homosexual tendencies aren't a sin.
Right.
That does.
So
see.
what you're saying is if you like dudes and you're a dude, then it's not a sin. But I bet that if you do anything about it, then that's when it moves over into sin territory, right?
Sin is acting of thought, word, and deed with freedom. So tendencies are not a sin. If you have a tendency to anger, it is not a sin now. If you are angry and hurt people, it is a sin there. So he's saying, yes, if you have
Yeah.
the tendencies or thoughts of homosexual thinking, then it's not a sin.
Yeah,
Which
so it's kind
yeah.
of, if I can
So
elaborate on it,
yeah.
and this is something that, as homosexuality becomes more, well, I guess what I should
Mm-hmm.
say is this. I guess what I should
Mm-hmm.
say is this. That line of thinking is something that even a lot of Protestants are accepting or have really, it's something that as homosexuality comes more
Mm-hmm.
into the mainstream or the
Mm-hmm.
it's more prevalent, that line of thinking that the Pope is expressing uh, is becoming more expressed even in Protestant circles. So the way I like to put it is, I am not a married guy.
Mm-hmm.
I am a heterosexual non-married guy. If I like a woman, I can look at a woman and, you know, be attracted to her, or say, "Oh, she's beautiful," or "She's a nice person." But the second I start lusting after her, or even fornicating, that's when it becomes sin. Same thing with, same thing if you're a homosexual. Like, you can have the homosexual tendencies just like I have heterosexual tendencies, but when I start acting on those in a sinful way, that's when it becomes sin. I think if I'm not mistaken, that's what the Pope is getting at.
Hmm. Let's see.
Well, I mean, if you want to,
Mm-hmm.
if I want, if I wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on this. I'm trying to figure out how to
Mm-hmm.
say it the best
Mm-hmm.
way I can.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to the fact that we have Catholics in the audience. If I had to pick one fight that I would like to pick with the Catholic Church, it's their viewpoints on sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't this gay, homosexual, heterosexual, their viewpoints on sex as a natural human condition, as a natural human imperative. Um, I find it to be incredibly disagreeable. Benny, everything that you just said 5 seconds ago, none of it was wrong or bad. Even the stuff that you said was sinful. None of it was. Now, are there bad things out there? Yeah. If you're like, oh, I like her, oh, I'm going to go rape her, then of course that's bad. That's terrible. That's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. But none of that was bad. Thinking about it is not bad. Okay. This
Yeah,
is,
no. Even the Pope just said thinking about it. It's when you
but that's what I'm
it's when you go
saying.
into the
It's
act of it.
how many gay people have died? How many gay people have died before the Pope finally said, okay, look, guys, you can think about gay stuff, just no butt stuff, then
Mm-hmm.
you
Well,
go to hell.
I don't think that's what. So there's a difference between thinking about it as in, oh, hey, once again, putting in a heterosexual, because I'm a heterosexual, so there's nothing wrong with me saying that young lady is an attractive young lady, and I think she's beautiful, and like my girlfriend is a beautiful woman, and I believe she's nice, and I think, and she's an attractive woman, but when I start lusting after her, and Jesus said that in the Bible. He said, if you lust after a woman, you have already committed adultery. Which, I mean, we can talk about the context of that. That's a whole different thing. But what the Pope is saying, I believe, and what a lot of even Protestants people are saying is, you can sin with your eyes and you can sin with your thoughts. And obviously you can sin with your body. Like, if I go and have premarital sex, which according to the Bible is a sin, then that's counted to me as sin. If I think about and fantasize about having premarital sex with a woman whom I'm not married to, then that also is counted against me as sin. Does that make sense? I'm sorry if I'm not explaining it enough.
It does make sense, but that's what I'm saying is that everything that you just described is perfectly natural.
It
It's
is.
it's a it's a perfectly natural state of human
Oh
affairs. Now,
my
once again, we
goodness.
can go into
Yeah.
the what was it? We talked about it in the last episode. The
Total
not the
depravity.
thank you, total depravity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, like we can go that far and be like, okay, it's total depravity and all that good stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just I don't know. Like I think it's great that the Pope is kind of like, okay, you can have those kind of
Yeah. I mean,
tendencies
he
and
also just said something here also. I had to scroll down a little bit. It said, once he did this in an interview. Once a homosexuality identity is set, Francis said, a homosexual man or woman has the right to a family, and that father and mother have the right to a son or daughter, come as it may, and no son or daughter can be thrown out of the home. So he's saying now that
Yeah.
if you are a Catholic parent and you have a homosexual son or daughter, can't throw them out. So
Yeah.
that's another
Okay.
step
All
towards
right.
something.
I love that. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Everything I just said about the Pope, I take back. That was nice.
Oh my
That I
gosh.
Well,
forget. I Pope.
yeah.
I Catholicism. I forgive you for the thousands of years of persecution against everybody who wasn't your religion. No. No. Seriously, that's actually a really great step forward. Like totally seriously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because
And
I
I
mean, we
think
don't even have that in America. Like in a kind of like our normal American, because Catholicism is big in America, but it's not. I don't think the
depends
biggest.
on where you live,
Oh,
honestly. But
well, of
yes,
course,
no, but
regionally,
yes.
you know.
But
Um, Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's like I like how a lot of these things that the Pope is saying, with the exception of the whole animals going to heaven thing, in regard to
Oh my
homosexuality.
gosh.
I mean, we'll talk about that later. I think
Mm-hmm.
those are sentiments that a lot of Christians have had um, over the years, but he is bringing it to the main stage. Um, and I mean, and a lot of those I have to agree. So I think that is something that this Pope is, which I don't adhere to the Pope because I'm not Catholic, but that is
Mm-hmm.
something that he is doing that I can say I agree with. Like he is definitely a more humble Pope. He rocks a Casio digital watch. He doesn't. I don't know if you guys ever seen that. He doesn't rock a Rolex. He
Uh,
has the $5, $5 watch, man, and he just seems to be more down to earth and more. He is, by their standards, a more liberal Pope in that regard, and
yeah, I would say so. If he just
yeah,
changed, you know, tradition.
yeah, no, I
So
agree.
let me ask you guys this: without without getting too deep into some of the bad stuff that's happening with the Catholicism, like the sex scandals and everything like that. That's something I think maybe we can get into at another time.
I know
Um,
he's the one who released all the stuff, didn't he? That's what
Yeah,
I just read.
yeah,
He's the one who let it all out and said, "Hey, here's what's going on."
yeah.
well, that's nice because that's I actually read up extensively on those scandals, and it's not good,
It,
guys.
yeah,
What's
it's
what's
not.
happened with that is not good, and so many people victimized, and like, what do you even like? No defense, nothing built in to protect
Wow.
them.
Oh my gosh. I'm just reading his statements on the whole thing. It's really interesting.
What's his statements? Don't leave us waiting. Come
He
on, what's up?
said he said the Pope was also asked about his February 21st to 24th summit on clerical sexual abuse, and he said that he understood some victims aren't satisfied with the results. He said, quote, "I understand them because one sometimes looks for results that are concrete facts of that moment," he said. For example, if I had hung 100 abusive uh, priests in St. Peter's Square, it is a concrete fact. I would have occupied space. But my interest is not to occupy spaces, but to start healing processes, he said. The concrete result of the summit, he argued, was to start processes, and this takes time, he said. But this is not the only way, but it's the only way for the cure to be irreversible.
So
Oh, go ahead.
while there's a part of me that really agrees with what he's saying that okay, well, you guys want to see these sickos dead. Really, the problem isn't the sickos themselves, although it is partially. The problem is the system, and so if they go in and fix the system, then they'll be able to essentially excise the cancer that is clerical pedophiles, and make it so it doesn't happen as much in the future. And I think that's great. I really like his process. I like his thought process. I
Maybe
would
that's what.
argue that
Yeah,
hanging
go
them
ahead.
in St. Peter's Square and fixing the system probably would be the better way to accomplish it, in my opinion. You guys might disagree with me when it comes to corporal punishment, capital punishment, excuse me. But
Mm,
I, I, if there's one person in this world that you should be able to trust outside of your family, it would be your religious authority.
that's true.
So, I find the fact that it ever happened to be a betrayal of the highest order
Yeah.
and treason in a lot of ways. And
And it's
so,
some and it's something that I definitely like how we're handling it in a very graceful manner because this all the scandal and um, all the alleged abuse and even all the actual abuse has been going on in the church is something that it's part of um, really Christianity as a whole because even in Protestantism you always have
Oh
that
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think what the Pope is saying that I definitely have to agree with is um, we're we're not going to see justice and results like we expect them. And I think that's very true, mostly because while the Roman Catholic Church is a solid single entity, you have to remember that they still have to, priests and bishops still have to abide by the laws of the countries where they're at.
yeah.
So what the Pope I think is saying is that don't get me wrong, this is messed up and this should have never happened, and we need to start fixing the system and we need to start this healing process. But let's keep in mind that we might not get the results that honestly we might be entitled to. And I think that's something very human and realistic. Because like you're saying, like I do agree, like no, jail them, like indict them, like if you messed up, you should get, you should be punished under your law,
Mm,
by all means.
mm,
But the reality is that a lot of the times we're not gonna, it's not gonna happen like we think it's gonna happen. Um, And this reminds me of what Jesus said in the Gospels, like, we are going to be persecuted. It is going to suck sometimes. Like, it is going to be hard. I'm not going to tell you that it's not. But remember that at the end of the day, the victory has already been won by God. And I'm not excusing what some of these people did to these children. And I'm not saying that what they did is not messed up. And it obviously really, some of these people will never be the same for the rest of their lives. But what's interesting about what the Pope is saying is that there is hope in God, despite this really horrible thing that just happened.
So, yeah. So that's something that's modern day has been going on. It's very recent that that
mm-hmm.
whole
Yeah.
situation, because of course the whole Catholic priest thing has been a joke since God, who knows? You know what
Yeah,
I
it's been
Yeah,
mean?
I
Like,
know it's been
very
on like
very crude in
it
my
was very early. Family Guy made a lot of those jokes too, and like
yeah
from the '90s. That's as
yeah,
far back as I can remember. I'm not that old.
it's been around for a while, but it finally breaking. Oops, excuse me, guys. It
It's all
finally
good.
breaking in such a public manner is obviously a good thing. But
yeah.
besides
Mm,
that, where do you guys think the Catholic Church as a whole is Catholicism as a whole is heading?
hmm,
It's suffering from what Benny talked about last time, which was secularization
mm-hmm.
is having its effect on Catholicism as well as mainstream Christianity as a whole. Um, so it doesn't have as many people, and it's shrinking every year, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But it's it's the it's the papa, it's the
Yeah.
daddy. It is like Catholicism is like in a lot of ways is Christianity, and everything else is kind of split
It
off from
it is
it.
the figure of it. Whenever you think Christianity, I mean, you automatically go to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Like
And
any
even
Yeah,
in
any
exactly.
kind
movies.
of representation in
Yeah.
media is always Catholic Church. I
Yep.
rarely ever see like some
A Protestant.
yeah some like Baptist
Yeah.
church. It's I mean,
Or
unless it's a
Orthodox. Yeah.
yeah, it's always a Catholic church in mainstream media.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just because it's been around so long, it's synonymous.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I mean?
think
That's
I think
true.
the Roman Catholic Church. Um. I mean, I know people. I know Protestants who are like super, super, like super critical and even about the Catholic Church, even to the point of saying like, oh, like Catholics aren't actual Christians, which is not true. I don't believe that to be
No,
true. I
absolutely
think
not.
that the Catholic
They're
Church,
followers of Christ. How could they not be Christians?
Well,
right?
because I've learned this through one of the institutes I went to was saying that once you get too ritualistic and following rituals too closely and not changing tradition, you become more cult-like. So a lot of Protestant and mainstream Christianity believe that Catholicism has fallen more into the wayside of a cult rather than being
Right.
mainline Christianity.
There's actually some logic there. Like, I mean, because if you think about it, Christianity was split off from Judaism, and
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Judaism is very, very, very ritualistic. Once again, maybe not the correct term. Excuse me to any of my Jewish
Yeah.
friends out there,
So
but definitely ingrained in ritual and ingrained in kind of those things. So yeah, I can see that. Like, because Jesus kind of shake things up. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different. So that seems. But Benny,
yeah.
you were gonna
Mm.
say something?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say it's like I think that the Roman Catholic Church, the direction I see it going is, particularly with this new Pope, and the fact that people seem to like him a lot. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll get more popes like him. I think that they will continue to just be a major player in just like charity, because Catholics, because the Roman Catholic Church is so big, they do a lot of charity, a lot of relief, and I think that's gonna be something that they will always continue to do. Um, and I think as Christianity as a whole becomes, um, I don't want to say secularized, but it's more as more people, leave the faith, so to speak. That's going to be something that happens not just in the Roman Catholic system, but in Christianity as a whole. We're going to see a decline of it, but we're also going to see a normalization of it. Um, so we're and there's nominal believers of every religious, background. There's nominal Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
there's nominal Jewish people, there's nominal Hindus. So and if you travel to Europe, I traveled to two of the more Catholic countries in the world, which is I spent a summer in Ireland and I spent a week in Italy. And what's happening, in my opinion, is that people go to church because it's so ingrained, and this is happening here in America too. People go to church because it's such a part of their culture that they go to church just because. Well, I mean, I'm Irish, so that's what we do. We're Catholic. It's kind of our thing, and they go, just to partake, just kind of just to go, really, just to partake in that part of their culture. Um, but they don't really buy into it, so to speak. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna, and that's gonna happen in all religions, really. The way I see it,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna happen, and just
Yeah.
the decline of practicing, the decline of actual practicing religiosity is going to decline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the
Let
way I see it.
me. I'll say something, but also first we have a comment on the Twitch here. It says it says you guys are handling this topic beautifully. So I guess we're not being
Oh,
you know.
whew, I can sleep tonight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you. I
Oh
was actually a
gosh.
little bit worried after
Me
the
too.
I was
whole
a
thing.
little bit. I'm
Okay.
not gonna lie.
Me too. But yeah, we got the thumbs up. But
Who's the user? Who's the user who said it?
Sarah Ann 246.
Shouts out.
Shout out to
Shout
Sarah.
out to Sarah Ann 246. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Much love.
Your
So-
check is in the mail.
Yeah, your check is in the
Payola.
But I think if I was to say another trend, particularly in the South here, is that the reason you see a lot of Protestant churches and not Catholic churches is because they were persecuted here in the South. That's a little known fact, is that the Catholics were like run out of the South. That's why they're all in the
Did not
Northeast.
know that.
So
I
I was
didn't
told
know
that by my
Yeah,
Catholic
seriously.
contact, my plug. So I think that Catholicism is going to dwindle, specifically here in the South, extremely hard.
Well, Catholicism also is huge in the West because of Latino cultures.
Yeah.
So it's huge in the West and the North, but in the South, it's already very small. So I think if it's going to leave anywhere in the United States first, it's going to be the South. It's going to be
I agree.
everyone's going to stick to Protestantism, and they're going to, less and less Catholic are going to go to Catholic churches,
Yeah.
and then less and less as a
That's
whole. But I
kind of the sad reality, honestly.
but we are in the Bible Belt, so I think it's going to be a shift. I think Catholicism is going to leave the South, and a lot of Protestants are going to come to the South, while I think that the West and the North will lose Christianity as a whole first, just because of the major cities, and maybe like Atlanta and like the
Well,
big cities here in the South. But other than that,
history history will tell you that the more, and we talked about the correlation between like poverty and religiosity.
Mm-hmm.
History will tell you that the more industrialized and the more yeah, the more modern industrialized an area become, the less religious it tends to be. So I think in the long scheme of it all, um the South will become more industrialized and more modern, quote unquote, even though
Yeah.
we're pretty modern. So that, yes,
I
I
mean,
agree with you,
Atlanta
Nick.
is Atlanta, Chattanooga, Knoxville.
Well, I mean, like,
But like, if you go to like Macon,
Nashville.
if you go to like Macon, absolutely not. You're in fields for hours until you hit
Well, I mean,
Savannah.
it's like that in like most of the country. Something that like the media, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like to admit or doesn't portray is that, you know, most of the big cities, like most of America is not big cities. Most of
Yeah,
America is
absolutely not.
cornfields
Yeah,
and cow pastures. So,
true.
but no, I agree with you.
Mm.
All right. So we think that we think it's going to keep we think in some regions it's going to shrink and in some other regions probably not get much stronger than it
Yeah,
already is.
Mm.
Because the big cities and everything else in the north
yeah,
and the west. So, well, that's America, but I
yeah.
mean, you
That's
have
Yeah,
the
other
world.
yeah, the
parts of the
world.
That's the world.
Well, I
Yeah,
know that already Christianity came to Japan like in the 1800s, I believe, or 16. It's something like 16 to 1800s. Um, and it was very, very. We had a movie about it called Silence that came out. I haven't seen it. I know it's a very good movie though, from what I've heard and seen like shots of it. So it was a time where Japan, was introduced to Christianity. The Christians were being persecuted and killed, and they didn't understand it. And so, like, if you look at Catholic churches in Japan, there's like two or three. There's not many. So they came,
yeah,
and it's already gone. It's mostly Shinto and Buddhism, with a few trace elements of Christianity and every other religion right there in Japan. But I know from my Asian studies class, that's what I've learned about religion
yeah,
is it came and then it went. It's already gone in Japan. Of course, you have your small, you know, followers. I think the number was like 100,000 or 10,000. A very small number for Japan.
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
And
Okay.
no, I was just gonna say that I actually met a guy who was a missionary to Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and he says the same thing, that it has to do a lot with the way Japanese people and Japanese culture tends to think.
Mm-hmm.
They're not very mutually exclusive in their thinking.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know if to say that it's not appealing. It's just a proper thing to say, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there's also like a language barrier because the word for God is kami, but
yeah,
that stands for God proper, Jesus proper, the Holy Spirit proper, and the spirits that in it's
yeah,
the word for spirit really. It's for spirit and God at the same time. So when you say kami-sama, you could be talking about God, or you could be talking about a spirit that lives in the tree. So
yeah,
you can't really, there's a language barrier
yeah.
with all
I
of these
agree.
countries that we've had
so
Christianity introduced to.
so what I think is going to happen is I think that Catholicism is in the process right now of figuring out some of their problems. And these problems have been contributing, in my opinion,
Mm,
to the historical decline that Catholicism is seeing. When people, have a problem, they're worried about their kids and the priests or whatever, or they're worried about, their homosexuals and all that good stuff. Um, I think that I kind of have a little bit of hope for Catholicism. Not gonna lie, you guys are like casting pretty bleak, and like okay, like people are getting more secular, and that's gonna cause problems. But I don't know, man. I'm thinking like if this
it's
guy can
yeah.
pull through and
I
like
hope
kind of
so.
It
like
depends on which pope they have too, as well. I'm
yeah, the
sure.
Pope is going to be one of the most important factors.
Hmm.
But I'm thinking like if they can kind of pull through and become a little bit more modern,
Yeah, they're taking baby
like
steps
you
towards
know
it.
like Protestant, that like that you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit more modern. Get a little bit more modern, get a little bit of the old stuff out, get it figured out, and I think that maybe they might come back and maybe better than ever, maybe stronger than ever. Because the thing is that people want and like having a central authority. You know what I mean? Like they want and like having a figurehead.
People want
Because I mean,
something to
this is
believe in.
human psychology. You know, they want a figurehead. They want a person to tell them what to think or what to believe. Excuse me. So I am not going to forecast so bleak. I'm going to say I think that if things keep going the way they do,
Yeah.
they'll be able to capture the young people. Because right now, Catholicism is an old person religion. You know, you're all like at the cathedrals, and you're like, oh, you know, in the stained glass and stuff. But I think if they can capture the younger people, it can work out. Now, I will say this: if it doesn't work out and the religion crumbles in the next 200 years, y'all better open up them vaults. I'm just saying, there's a lot of stuff in the Vatican vaults that the world needs to see, in my opinion, and I wish they would open them up. I really do. I like. There's so much human history in there, and the fact that it's hidden from us is disgusting, in my opinion. But I mean, that's their right. It's the stuff that they own, so I guess it's not anybody's job to tell them what to do with it. But if they crumble, the vaults will open. So give it a few hundred years. We'll see what happens.
But
In the
after we're
meantime,
gone,
I will
sure.
be in heaven with my dog. Okay.
Per the Pope. Per the Pope.
per the
Per the
Pope,
Pope.
with your. Nah, never mind. No.
Per the Pope.
Yeah.
Okay, so my friends, what are we gonna oh man, what are we gonna talk about next week? We're gonna hit Protestantism
Sure.
finally?
We can
Or we
definitely
can
get
do
it.
like
And
we could talk about the Protestants who are kind of in between Catholics and
Ooh,
those are
transitional.
called,
which
those
would
are
be
called
like
Episcopalians.
yeah, Episcopalians. That's what I meant.
Oh,
They're because
okay.
they're like, and like the Anglican Church is kind of
They're
that.
interesting.
Lutheran
Yeah,
is
Did you
kind
guys
of there.
did you guys ever see the movie Queen of the Damned?
No, I
No.
have not.
Oh, well, first of all, you should. It's great.
Watch this. Our
It's a
homework.
Vampire Chronicles movie, right? This is based on the Anne Rice book, Queen of the Damned. There's a part where Lestat the vampire is picking a victim, and so he walks up to like this because he's a rock star in the movie. So he walks up and he says to like one woman, you know, and he's like, what are you? And she's like, you know, I'm, you know, this girl, and I do this, you know, and he's kind of like, okay, that's cool. And he walks up to like three more, and then he gets to one, and he's like, what are you? And she's like, I'm an Episcopalian. And he kicks her out.
Really?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
well, no, at that point,
Mm.
like he was looking for victims, so actually he saved her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like the way she's the way she's kind of portrayed is really funny and just kind of ditzy. I think honestly that was probably a lot of people's first time they ever heard that term.
Yeah.
And I still, like I said, I still know nothing about it, so I got a lot of research to do if we're gonna
Oh,
mess with that.
Episcopalians are actually really interesting.
Yeah.
So, I like it.
I'm an Episcopalian.
I mean, you know,
So
half
we're-
of a lot of it with Catholicism. So I mean,
Yeah.
so
So-
you're already halfway there.
Yeah, it'll be fun to talk about Protestant. We can definitely talk about
Well,
Protestantism next week.
So here's the question: let's do
Mhm.
Episcopalians,
Okay.
because I think that's kind of cool. It'll be fun, and then unless we change our mind before the next episode, in which case I'm sorry. But okay, so I just have one question then: can
Mhm.
Episcopalians take communion?
I'm not familiar with their polity.
Me either.
So definitely have something.
let's
You see, I
let's
had to- I
let's
had to bring
research
it in.
that. Let's research
yeah.
that. Also,
So,
oh, go ahead. I'll say something at the end.
no, what I would say is like if an Episcopalian was to go to another denomination service, and they
Yeah.
could probably take communion. But like if me as a Presbyterian, if I go to an Episcopalian church, I do not know if they have open or closed communion.
Yeah.
So that's something definitely we would have to do research on.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into that. That's an interesting question.
Yeah,
okay, well,
absolutely.
gentlemen, I think it might be time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I've had a lovely time talking to beautiful and
sure.
wonderful
Mhm.
humans.
For sure. For sure.
Nick, would you like to do your outro, my friend?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening to Lorecast, the religion section. We talked about Catholicism today. If you have any comments, please leave them down in the comments below, and or on the chat, or if you're on Spotify, email me at realebadproductions@gmail.com or theoriginalnickshow.com, and I will be sure to answer them on a video dedicated to it, your questions, and we will also talk about them on the next podcast, or we'll have like a dedicated episode to them. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out Devin at beetlemilk.com, and also check out Benny on Twitter. I forget his Twitter name. I think it's like It's Benny.
No.
What is it? It's like
oh my gosh, that's my phone. I don't know. I know it's like The Wise Mexican
Oh, okay.
or
So
something like that. Yeah,
at the
off the top of
Wise
my head, but
Mexican,
I'll have it. I'll have it for sure. I think there's like a number after. I don't know. I'll have it next week.
all right. And then check out me on Originate Games or the Originate Show, or check us all here on Lorecast on Sunday, where we talk about regular lore and your favorite anime, manga, TV show, movies, etc. And on during the week, usually like a Wednesday or Thursday, most likely is when we'll get to the Religion Podcast. Like we said, we'll be talking about Episcopalians next week. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Later.